Alrighty, guys. Oh man, I went ahead offline and apologized to Captain Glashauser for our technical issues Wednesday. Um, I'll go ahead and just spitfire through it. The internet guys came and it was the yard worker crew, if you will, and they just unplugged my internet access, didn't let me know, and we're burying the cable. And shortly after y'all saw the captain get off, I jumped back on and let y'all know what had happened. So thank you all for bearing with me. And again, Captain Glashauser, I apologize and apologize to the viewers, but we are up and running, and without any unforeseen crazy issues, we ought to be good to go today. And considering we were kind of in a weird portion there between the ending of his Recon and kind of starting into his Covey career, I think we're going to pick off today until everybody gets in here and starts getting their questions to us. I think we're going to speak a little bit about Mr. Greg and his Covey experiences. So, Mr. Greg, if you can remember all these details, and if you can't, just roundabout figures. Do you know when or around the time you were you asked to come over to the Covey side of things, or did you ask to start flying Covey?
I think it was a little bit of both. We, uh, when I started, I did it as a substitute. I was still doing some recon, and we needed a Covey rider, and I said I would volunteer to go up and do it. Then after I did it for a couple days, I thought it was a really good fit for me and what I could contribute to the organization. So at that point, I made the suggestion uh, to one of the commanders, and uh, they said, "Okay, give it a go."
Wow.
So
Okay. I've and year wise, is this some 70, or is it still latter 69, or have we gotten into 1970?
no, it was in '69.
Okay.
It was like
Okay.
around. It was in. I know was flying Covey in September of '69.
Wow. Okay. September of 69. Okay. And I get this question a lot because I have um conversed with a few of the more, if you will, famous Covey writers that are in some of Plaster's books, including you. uh, were you around, for the Covey writers? Was the country club a open thing for all Covey writers? Is that where all of y'all would go? The bar?
Uh, no, we most of the time we just went after we flew a mission for the day. We'd either uh, depending on who was available and what the action was out in the field, we'd either fly back to Khartoum and take a jeep back to FOB, or we'd land on the airstrip in Pt.2 and switch planes and go back out. There were there were there were times when we went to we'd fly back to Pleiku to the Air Force Base, but those were the exceptions rather than the rule.
That, I was just wondering because I've got a lot of photos from some vets that are pretty private that they let me share some of their stories, but don't like their names getting out particularly, but the guys, if y'all never heard of the Covey Country Club, I was showing the entrance to the bar. It was a bar, a hangout. I'm not sure. Maybe Mr. Greg can help us. I don't know if anybody. Well, actually, I do. People live there. Plaster, I think, lived there. Gromit, Gerald Dennison lived there, and I think he was actually in there when it got rocketed and got hurt. But there's Plaster, Lynn Woods, and Woody, Philip Woods, and they're in the country club right here. So did you ever get to go in here, or did you just go to work, bypass, and go back to your hooch and go to sleep?
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly they're referring to as the country club.
Okay, I'll dig up some stuff. There was Plaster leaving. He's getting dumped with, I can only assume, either water or liquor for his last Covey flight. There's Martha Ray. I've got a photo of, there's when it was hit. Some of the guys were in there. As I said, there's the front for the club, and I think 2 or 3 guys, Larry White, Plaster, Gerald Dennison lived there. But nonetheless, and Maggie, she's that was a dedication from a bird dog rotor, or I believe, or prop that they buried to memorialize this situation. But were you flying when you began flying Covey? What were you directly with Mr. Frank Doherty with the SPAF men, or who was flying Covey for y'all at that time?
Well, we kind of, yeah, Frank was one of the pilots, and then we had
Pete Johnston, maybe one.
Yeah, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we used to call him Fat Spaff.
Yes, sir. I can't remember either, but I remember another man mentioning Fat Spaff. Quite the character, I've heard.
Yeah. So a number. We really use 2 different types of aircraft for our Covey operations. We used a Cessna L-19. That was the bird dog group. Mm-hmm. They were Army. It was kind of almost like, the only thing I could always think of was it was like a Piper Cub. I'm sure it was more than that, but you sat behind the pilot, and then the other plane we used was a Cessna. I don't know, it was an 02 or a 02 Skymaster, and those were the Air Force pilots. And in those, you sat in the right seat next to the pilot, and they were a dual engine plane. They had a propeller in the back and a propeller in the front.
Push pull, yes, sir.
Yeah. So my preference was always the Skymasters, the 02s, because you could look at the pilot and he could look at you, and you were looking out the windshield of the aircraft rather than just looking out the side of it, and you had a better view. That was my personal preference.
I've from the men I've talked to that rode Covey, they liked it a lot better as well, because I was actually watching a video this morning that one of the, can't remember the YouTube account, but it doesn't matter. Although I'd like to give him credits for a great video. He did a special on the O2 this morning. And it showed the inside and all of that, and then I watched a video on the bird dog on the inside, and I just couldn't imagine what it was like, you having to get in the back seat of that thing with y'all's gear, a parachute, the radios going crazy. I don't. I mean, that would have been tough. Could you speak a little bit about? I mean, I know you're already used to craziness because you've been on the Hatchet Forces, you've been on 2 recon teams that got into some heavy contact, but this is going to be this was a whole different kind of crazy clusterness for you. Could you speak a little bit about what those first couple of flights were like, getting your bearings up there?
Sure. The it was a er, no matter what you did, there was some planning and some just plain chaos, whether you're on the ground or in the air. It was a different kind of chaos, but it was organized, harmonized chaos. The being in the air, the the first your first real skill was that you had to be able to look at a topographic map and locate that specific spot on the ground almost instantly. And so um, that was that was something from my first flight that it just felt very natural for me to do that. And then once you're able to do that, you're able to identify targets. You're able to locate, uh, give coordinate positions to the teams that are on the ground. You can direct airstrikes in. You can do all those kinds of things. But uh, the the coordination of what was going on was very interesting. We would at any one time you could have some Sky Raiders. That was the SPADs, the Douglas A1 single prop uh, bombers, King B helicopters, the Cobras. Um, there were it wasn't a real common, but it did happen that we would have some Navy jets report in that they had some ordnance to help out with, and so you had all these different pilots all trying to be coordinated on whether it's an insertion or an extraction or supporting a team on the ground.
What was I know, I believe Placer gets the point across that when you and Mr. Glenn were in y'all's first firefight with Hawaii, uh, that there were actually 6 teams on the ground, and I think y'all and another had declared a prairie fire emergency. Can you recall any instances like that with while you were flying, to where y'all had multiple teams in either a particular or precarious situation or in a prairie fire situation?
Yeah, probably the one that um, sticks in my mind the most was um, in September of '69. Um, we had a hatchet force that we inserted into just south of Juliet 9, right on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and the hatchet force's uh, job was to uh, locate uh, uh, enemy weapons caches, ammunition caches, and also to just put a roadblock on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and that was in September of '69, and the leader of that one was Captain Goulet. And we also had a few other teams on the ground. And on that day, both the Hatchet Force declared a prairie fire emergency, along with one of the recon teams that was very close to the Bra there in Juliet 9. And so the Hatchet Force came under attack, and Captain Goulet was seriously wounded and then later died. I'm not sure if he passed on the ground or on the helicopter extract, but they had a prairie fire emergency going. And then we had this recon team that had a prairie fire emergency going. So we had, and I was the only Covey in the air. So we had to play both ball games and still get out as many people as we could. We went the first. This is why I call it kind of harmonized chaos. There were a few interesting things that happened on with both of the teams. The first one was we had several wounded Americans on the ground with the Hatchet Force. And we started to bring in a helicopter, and they started to come under fire. And a number of the what we called them Sioux, they were the Mountain Yard soldiers, rushed the helicopter, just trying to get out. And the helicopters pulled out without anybody on board. And it was right at that time that the team in Juliet 9 was in heavy contact and on the run, trying to move away from some NVA soldiers near the Bra. So I had the Hatchet Force surround their perimeter with claymore mines, and usually when you went out on a mission like that, each member of the team would carry a minimum of 2 and maybe 4 claymore mines. So they set up this perimeter of claymores that we were that I was going to have them detonate on command when the helicopters were getting into place to extract them. So while they were doing that, I went over to we flew up to the team that was on the ground, and they couldn't get to a clearing, so we dropped strings down to them for an extract, and one part of the team came out successfully. The second helicopter went in, dropped the ropes. The guys tied off on it. The helicopter took several hits and crashed within half a click from the Bra. And that helicopter pilot did a miracle job of auto rotating in and landing the helicopter without it exploding and without dragging the guys that were on the ropes underneath it through the jungle. So then they were back on the ground. And so we had, at that time, we had the hatchet force in combat, and then we had helicopter down with pilots, and we still had part of our recon team on the ground. So we for that particular mission we had some Navy jets report in, and they were carrying some heavy loads, 500,000 pounders bombs, and if you're fortunate enough to get a fighter like that, they would, when they'd report in, they'd tell you, well, I got like 30 seconds on target or whatever, based on how much fuel they had left. And so you'd have to have a target and place those bombs. So the long and the short of it is, we blew all of the claymores. The Cobras laid down a base of fire, and we were able to extract out the hatchet force without any loss of people, any further loss of soldiers. And then we went back to help the team that was on the ground. And in those situations, everyone is trying to do the right thing. And we had one of the helicopters, one of the slicks was going in. He said, I see the guys on the ground. I'm going down to pick them up. And when he got close to the ground, it was NVA soldiers rushing out of into the open area, shooting at him. So they opened up with their M60 door guns, and the Cobras worked the area over. But we eventually got the team and the helicopter pilots out of Juliet 9 with no loss of life. There were obviously there were people injured from the helicopter crash and that sort of thing, but there were times when it was quite chaotic,
to say the least. I mean, and we're getting some good questions in. This all sounds so familiar of a mission and a photo that I've got. Mike Shepard, I was in contact with him, and this is the photo of a king bee that's gone down. And the next, he wrote on the back for me to let me know. Let me zoom back out, and I believe this is the one. December 1969, we were shot down. Mike pulled clear by Captain Goulet, who was KIA the next day. Mike was platoon leader, 1969. Is this the same mission?
Same mission.
Oh my God. So this guys, this mission is let me get this off the screen. That mission in particular is mentioned heavily in John Plaster's Secret Commandos book. It's a very, very just devastating, much like you heard from the captain. I believe weren't they also operating near Dak Siang, the Special Forces camp?
Yes, Doc Siang was still open at that point.
That's what I heard. They got the yards in and all that, and Mike probably doesn't want me to tell that. That's one of those that he regrets doing, but in the heat of the battle, he did it, and luckily didn't get in trouble. But nonetheless, that I can't believe we just got that set straight again. I had always been, especially anytime Goulet's mentioned, and I have such a little understanding and history links through Mr. Mike Shepard to Goulet. It's amazing to finally get that hooked up and connected. God, that is just amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
We have. Go
at
ahead.
one
I'm sorry.
I was going to say at one point, Pt.2 was our launch site, and it's where we had the bright light team and that sort of thing. And then right due west of Pt.2 was Ben Het, and Ben Het was in the news all the time. They had tanks in the wire there from NVA tanks and that in the wire, and they were constantly under attack. And then running parallel to the Laotian border, there was a highway that didn't get any more use, but it was kind of like a landmark. You could still see the road. It would go up the Dak Siang, and then north of Dak Siang was right along that same highway was Dak Peck,
Mm-hmm.
and we eventually closed down those Dak Siang and Dak Peck, but Ben Het still stayed open. But those were all. Every one of those A camps was right on an infiltration route coming in from North Vietnam.
There are several famous accounts from all three bases, and especially Doc Siang and Ben Het of SOG men either being there waiting to be put on a mission, and it just so happens there's an attack or something like that, and several SOGmen were up there and fighting it out when the bases were being attacked. And there's some good books out on that. Guys, I'll get the book, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but there's a famous image of a guy looking back in a rocky crater. It's very famous. I'll get the name out that covers that. And speaking of Ben Het, Mr. Gary Luttrell won the medal, or earned the Medal of Honor from that when they were overrun right before they closed it down officially. So those places have a lot of history of being hot, like you said.
Ben Het right now is a Vietnamese town, and they have a North Vietnamese memorial there with one of their NVA tanks as a monument.
There's it's interesting where because a lot of the A camps were literally just in the middle of nowhere, and you couldn't find them unless you've got a vet that literally remembers where where the Latin long and can walk up on it. But there are several, and it's interesting which ones the communists decided to memorialize or put a monument out. They've got some really weird, interesting monuments that they've put up to some of the A camp battles, and several they've made monuments where they, excuse my language, but they got their asses kicked, and they still put up a more memorial for it. But nonetheless, we've got some good questions coming in about some Covey action. If you'd like for me to get to them.
Okay, I just wanted to mention one last little tidbit,
Absolutely.
And this is that area. that we referred to as the bra. That is while there was uncountable number of bombs dropped there, B-52 strikes, all kinds of munitions dropped in that general area. There was still an abundance of wildlife there, wild elephants, tigers, and that sort of thing. And it is now a Laotian game preserve, wildlife game preserve.
Wow. I did not know that. I was often curious if they had put up some, because y'all's stories about the wildlife is just amazing, and especially the tigers and the monkeys and all of that. I can do without the snakes and the leeches, but let's see. Daniel had a good question. How long did it take to learn how to ID targets on the ground, i.e., recognize people?
You mean as a Covey?
Yes, sir. As Covey, identifying your people and targets that you could hit. How long before you got fairly proficient?
Probably the first flight. I mean, if you couldn't do that, you shouldn't have been there. I know. That was part of it. Part of it was, your pilot. The pilots were very experienced as well. So, it was a combination of the pilot and the Covey rider that would work together. Probably one of the probably one of the more difficult things to locate when you first start flying was some sort of NVA equipment that was along the road or hidden in the canopy and that. And every once in a while, you would see a light reflection off of a windshield or something like that, or off the side of them on the metal on the truck that would help guide you in to a target like that. But you also had a whole bunch of false false alerts that would be water and bomb craters and that would be reflecting light. But as far as identifying our guys on the ground, typically when you were trying to be extracted, you would turn your hat inside out, and it would have a little orange panel sewn in the top of your hat, and that's how we knew our guys from the bad guys, and quite commonly.
Here's the view. This is some of Frank Doherty's photos. Mr. Frank, thank you for letting me use your photos, and I've got another little tidbit of his book that features Mr. Gregg. But this is Mr. Gregg's point of view when he's up there in the air. So I mean, yeah, you got to imagine, how why the need for a good 1-0, i.e., a good Covey rider, is needed, because I mean, you've got bombed out areas here that you can clearly see people if they're coming through. But look at this right here. I mean, even if you get a signal flare or a mirror or something like that, I mean, that's still tough identifying. I mean, and not to mention the NVA wearing, their dark camouflage. I mean, this had to be pretty difficult to get used to, especially from you being on the ground for so long and then switching it up and being in the air. But that's I like showing the different point of views. And here's one last one. This is a river crossing. I'm not sure where he was at. I think Mr. Frank was crossing, heading towards the Ho Chi Minh Trail at that point in time, but he was taking some photos. So even this, I mean, you got to have eagle eyes. And that's actually going to bring me to a new question. Guys, I'm going to get to yours, but this just literally popped into my mind that I'd forgotten about. You and a few other men were famous. I don't know if that's the right word, but you wore glasses, and we've been told by numerous people that they didn't you didn't have SOG men wearing glasses because eyesight and all of that. Did you have any issues with your glasses on the ground or in the air, or you even wearing glasses?
No, my glasses didn't bother me very much. They really weren't a problem. I mean, there might be times when, if we were setting up for an ambush or something like that, that I would put my glasses in my pocket so that there wouldn't be any light reflection off the lens or anything like that. But typical on an operation, or especially up in the air, glasses were not a problem.
Wow. Did you go through a lot of pairs, considering you were in the bush and could have broken them a lot, or did you have to take care of them because I don't know if there was an optometrist around, or any issues getting extras if you broke any?
No, there weren't any optometrists around, but I think I went in with four pair when I got in country, and I only broke a couple.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that was always interesting. I saw that, and you, Ken Boyd, uh, Doc Paget, Joe Walker, quite a few experienced good in the woods men wore glasses, and I always found that to be interesting, considering guys said that was a no-no. But here you are rocking and rolling with them. And I also had a question. I always liked your scarf you wore, or your tourniquet or your scarf that could be turned into a tourniquet instead of wearing around your head as a do-rag. But what do you have on your shoulder here? Is that a grenade, or what might that be? I can't. Oh,
I can't really tell on my phone here.
yeah. Let me get right here. I hate I messed all of that up. I think it's either a strobe light or it could be your ERC 10. But let me get to some of
Most
these, and like I said, some of the guys are wanting to know about the photos that I've got of you.
most likely
Daniel,
it
oh,
was
go ahead.
most likely it was a strobe light. The ERC 10s were a little larger.
That's actually exact. Yep, that's what it is. I see the little top to where it could shine the little light could come out. Excellent. Daniel would like to know how usual this is good. How usual was it that the Covey aircraft would take fire?
Um, there was all different kinds of fire that you could take, um, depending on your altitude and where you were located. If you were near the near the bra, they actually had anti-aircraft guns, um, where you could be at 6,000 or 7,000 feet and they'd still be shooting at you. And if you got lower, like if you were going in to mark a target with a rocket off of like the O2, there'd be a lot of ground fire. I'd every day you were exposed to a certain amount of ground fire. The people who faced the craziest amount of ground fire were the King Bee pilots and the slick pilots. Those guys were amazingly brave.
Yeah, they needed wheelbarrows waiting when they got back to the strip to load up their balls to carry back to the club.
That's right, because they were so dedicated. Those guys, like if you're, and a common extract for a recon team would be to be pulled out on strings, because um, if you were in contact on the ground, um, the NVA knew where the open spots were where a helicopter could land, and they would send people immediately to those locations and just be waiting for a helicopter to come in and land so that they could shoot it up, shoot it down, possibly get a pilot capture. So the most common extract for a recon team would be for a helicopter to hover 150 feet, 200 feet above the ground, um, drop ropes down, and have the team tie off, and then they'd have to lift straight up to get you out of the trees so they didn't drag you through the trees, and then fly away. And all the while they're hovering over top, they're taking ground fire. Crazy.
I can't imagine coming out of the jungle like this. I've got a little Stabo picture, but I mean, and then God forbid if you don't have that pilot that is a little gutsy, just pull you straight up, and being drugged through the dadgum the trees. I can't imagine what that must have been like on top of that. But with your in your era, 69 going into 70, were up until you left actually, were King Bees still in use, or were they starting to bring in more slicks to replace the King Bees, or were the King Bees always at CCC until you left?
They were there all the while I was there. They were um, they flew. They would take. I don't think they were assigned specifically to FOB2, because you didn't use them on every mission. Like some, you could. I'd go out on like maybe 2 or 3 missions and use slicks, and then all of a sudden we'd have King Bee pilots for the next one. So I don't know exactly how they were assigned, but they were with us all the while I was there.
Brave, both the slick guys, like you said, and those King Bee guys, just brave men. My God. White would like to know, Mr. Dale Hansen, RT Florida, CCC, speaks of the pilots pretending to be wounded, and he had to screw the pipe into the small holes so he could take over and fly the plane as the Covey rider. Any similar experience? It was a training and a little joke to welcome him in.
No, I I had probably my scariest time on a flying Covey was we were hit with some ground fire, and about the time and we were losing fuel, and we lost the back engine, and we still hadn't gotten to the border by Ben Het yet. And the pilot looked at me and said, I think you weigh too much. You need to, put the parachute on and jump. Otherwise, we're not going to make it to Dock Toe." And I looked at him and I said, "No." I said, "We're going to make it together."
Good Lord, have mercy.
I didn't exactly use those words, but
I can imagine so.
but I wasn't going to parachute out in Laos.
No, 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 sir. Um, God, that's wild. Throwing your parachute, you gotta get out of here. Would you, when you were going in for your Covey ride, were you carrying every time your parachute, your I guess the radios were in the aircraft already, but would you carry car 15 with some ammo? What was your Covey loadout, so to speak?
Yeah, that was pretty. The loadout was pretty simple. Um, uh, I'd carry a 45 pistol, and I'd have a car 15 with probably 6 or 8 clips. I had a little bag I carried, and then I carried a canteen and a strobe light and uh, an emergency radio in case we got shot down. You really couldn't carry too much just because the planes didn't need any extra weight. The parachutes were already in the seat.
Aircraft.
Yeah. So I don't know. We they were in the back of your seat, and we used them like a backrest. I don't know if they would ever open. To tell you the truth.
And God, y'all never had to use them or test them out.
That's right.
Uh, oh, Mr. Terry from CCC Hatchet Forces, while you were there, he's at the 5th Group reunion at Fort Campbell, I believe. He was wanting to tell you good morning, and hope you're having a good day.
Having a great day. Hope
Excellent.
you are too.
He is. He's already up and running, and he wants to talk to me because evidently the 5th Group commander has been watching the podcast, guys, and evidently he's got some good things to say. So we'll check that out. Oh, this one's an interesting because I don't think I've ever asked you this. Jake would like to know: did you have experiences with the OV-10 before you left? The Bronco? No.
No.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. I think that was 71, 72 there at the end before that started showing its face.
Yeah, no. Really the Bird Dog and the Skymaster were the two main planes that I flew in. There is I kind of remember this, but I'm not one of the guys who flew the L-19 could probably give you better information. But as I remember it, the steering mechanism for the on the L-19 had a metal pipe that ran underneath the seats, and when you sat behind the pilot, you had that pipe would turn as they were trying to navigate the airplane. And I remember the first time that I was in the plane, I felt something pinching on my toe. And I had my side of my foot kind of stuck underneath the pipe that was rotating, that was part of the navigation system.
And that's the one where you could plug in if need be and take control.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Man.
You would screw a pipe in, and it was like, it was. I think they used to, the slang word for them was, take control of the stick.
And you didn't ever have to take control of the stick at all?
No, I never had to do that. I did it in a Skymaster, but they didn't have a stick. They had dual control steering wheels.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Very heavy duty. I didn't want to mix up a question since we're still on Covey. Oh, that's it. Daniel's got a good one because I was following up with this. Did you ever have to get low enough and need to throw grenades or shoot the CAR-15 out of the aircraft to support any of the teams?
Yes. Didn't throw grenades are a dangerous thing. Grenades are a dangerous thing. So many things can go wrong with a grenade. I mean, I think when you say that, I think of I have an image of the Red Baron flying in World War I, dropping bombs out of his biplane. No, we didn't do that, but did get low enough to right at treetop level to provide a distraction and shoot the weapon at potential enemy soldiers while we were waiting for gunships or something to come and support us while we were trying to get a recon team out. We also they sometimes the Skymasters carried like phosphorus rockets on their wings, and you'd use those for marking targets. And we would also drop down and shoot those as needed if we were trying to use it as some form of support for the ground troops.
Anti-personnel, if you will.
Yes.
I every time I hear one of y'all or read about one of the Covey riders hanging out the window with the CAR-15, I wish we could have somebody had a picture of it or someone would do a painting of that because I bet that was one hell of a sight to see y'all swooping down low, firing down. I know the recon teams especially thank their heavens that y'all were up there. Hell, Ed Walkoff told me about Karate Davis doing it, and he was so glad, even though it wasn't doing much, but it took enough off of him to get the hell out of there. Let's see here. Oh gosh, Joe Morris. He's out of town, but he wanted me to tell you hello this morning, and he couldn't. He wanted me to try and get straight because he can't remember when he had been up on Leghorn, and he thought that maybe you were flying Covey when he had his little incident on Leghorn. You remember the little incident with the lightning going down?
I have a vague recollection of that, but I don't I don't have the details in my head.
I think
But I'm pretty sure I was the Covey when that happened. Yep.
yeah, he was up on top, and I think y'all started calling him Broadway because he lit up like Broadway after it hit. He put out a radio signal, still had the radio on his back, hit him, blew grenades, hit the claymores, all went off, and thank the good heaven up above that no one died and Joe didn't die, but he said it lit him up like Broadway, and I can only assume that's where you got that new nickname for him.
Yeah. I think I was the one who named him Broadway Joe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He wanted me to try and get that one straight, so I was glad I was getting that. And Mr.
Yeah.
Joe, if you're watching this, I hope you're having a good day as well.
Yep. Hello, Joey.
Oh man, he's quite the guy. I love Mr. Joe. He's a very kind man and just a good, stellar guy.
He is.
Let's see.
I
I've been at.
Oh,
go ahead, sir. Yes.
Funny story about Joe. This is so it's after Vietnam, and I'm in Columbus, Ohio, going to Ohio State University, and I'm walking down the main drag there that bumps up against the university there. It's called High Street. I'm walking down High Street, and someone starts yelling out my code name. My code name was Wolfgang, and so I'm walking down the street, and there's a guy hanging out of the window of a car yelling Wolfgang, Wolfgang, and it was Joey. And so we bumped into each other couple years after being in Vietnam at Ohio State on the street.
How crazy there both of y'all are not only serving so long at CCC that y'all just randomly pop into each other at Ohio State.
Yeah, that was crazy.
With him hanging out the window, Wolfgang, Wolfgang.
Yep.
I love him, and I'm hoping he'll be able to join us in a few weeks to come on. He said after you came on and he watched, he'd come on. He wanted you to be the first to do it, though. So,
you need to get Al Farrell too.
I'm working like the Dickens, and his hearing is getting bad, but I'm trying to tell him we can get him earbuds to get in. So I'm working on Al. And Al, if you're watching, hello to you this morning as well. I told him that you were going to be coming on, so maybe he'll be watching. We've got a few more, and then we'll close up with you telling or speaking about the few pictures I've got, since we've already gone an hour and we weren't going to go that much longer. This was from the last viewer questions from when we shut down. I've been asked this several times because one of the Recon men actually did have this. Did anyone at CCC and did you on any of your teams have a special signal in case the Montagnards or any Indigs turned, i.e. a betrayal or plan to kill y'all in the field?
No, I never even heard of that.
The only, and honestly, the only one I know of, and it's legitimate, is Dave Maurer, who wrote one of the first SOG books, CCN, RT Louisiana, RT Hawaii. They had, if I'm not mistaken, Daniel can help me, but he had the word thunderclap, and if the other American mentioned it or Dave said it, they immediately put down all of the Indig. Either something had been given away or they knew they were about to be killed and would call that out. That is the only known instance that I've heard of Recon men having that wariness to have a code word to kill all the Indigs.
Yeah, That's new to me.
Yeah, I'm still learning new stuff. So I've not heard, like I said, I've not heard of any CCC guys having a code word, but I figured I'd ask just in case maybe you did.
Yeah, we trusted our our indigenous staff implicitly.
That's the one thing I've noticed, specifically between CCC and CCN. They were so close and were so infiltrated already up north that a lot of guys were put on teams they had no idea or hadn't met and trusted. And CCC wasn't like that. Y'all didn't go to the field until y'all knew y'all could trust the guys and lay your life in their hands. So very different operational procedures from up north to y'all at the central.
And I I would also say that a large number of the mountain yards, at least that were in FOB2, all came from the villages or were related, and they knew each other. And when we were recruiting additional soldiers, we would rely on, our trusted mountain yards to vet the people who were looking for a job with us.
And there's numerous stories of the yards finding guys that were either acting sketchy or were dirty, and them handling it themselves, and that guy never being seen again. Not saying he was killed, but he was kicked the hell out and was never seen ever again.
Yeah, they didn't. They weren't in it to die either.
Absolutely, absolutely. As much as they had already been through, they ain't wanting to go out like that. Uh, let's see here. Joe, we covered that. I get asked a lot. Daniel likes to know, because you especially with the Hatchet Force and Recon, when y'all would go into an RON, we kind of know y'all false an RON and go opposite and get into a highly brushy area or a noisy area to where you'll know if you're about to be probed or engaged. Were y'all sleeping in a wagon wheel with high security all night? And were y'all sleeping on the ground, roughing it? What was y'all's overnight situation like?
Totally different. The Hatchet Force from the Recon team. The Hatchet Forces would dig in. You'd have two guys per foxhole. One guy, while you were setting up the perimeter at night, well, you'd stop before dark so you could get your foxholes dug. But one person would be watching the perimeter while the other person would dig the foxhole, and then they'd alternate back and forth. And they dug pretty specific, pretty standard size foxholes with a little hole to kick a grenade in should a grenade land in your foxhole and that kind of thing. The recon missions, I can tell you, I probably didn't sleep very many hours. As long as the operation lasted, I didn't sleep many hours, but we would typically sleep in a wagon wheel formation, and we do like a little fish hook when we were moving into our location, so that if we were being tracked and they were following us, they'd have to walk past us following our path, and we would know they were there while they were still looking for us. The seldom, and Yeah, I'd say seldom. There were only a couple missions where we actually put claymores out at night, and that was because we had some contact earlier in the day, and we broke contact, and
Weren't taking any
we
chances.
weren't extracted. You didn't always get extracted just because you made contact, and so on some occasions we did put out some claymores, but that was the exception rather than the rule. Typically, what we would do is we would sleep in that kind of wagon wheel formation, and among the Americans that were on the team, we would say you're going to have it from midnight to 3, and someone else would have from 3 to 6 or whatever, and that's how we would do like 3-hour shifts. And then among the indigenous guys, they did the same thing. So in theory, there was always one American and one indigenous soldier awake at the same time.
And when y'all are in the RON and it's, I should say, that next morning, are y'all immediately getting up? A question I always have that people laugh at, but it's deathly serious. Are you one of the teams that takes no poop pills, or do you have guys that have to go off and do their morning business before they eat and go bury stuff? Or what? How did the morning start? Were y'all going to eat first, go to the bathroom, and then head out after sterilizing the area? Or what was the next morning like leading out?
On my team, you ate once a day. You ate at the end of the day before we moved to a spot where we were going to spend the night. So the only thing that you would have in the morning is like a drink of water out of your canteen.
Wow. Okay.
And then the food, you never had hot food. We had there were lerps, but we ate those in camp. And so what we typically ate on a mission was an indigenous meal, which consisted of a bag of rice that you would fill with water at some point in the day and tie it off, and maybe put a little bag of seasoning in it, and then late in the afternoon we would eat. And when it was time to eat, half the team would eat and half the team would watch, be on security, and then the other part of the team would eat.
Wow. And the last part, when y'all are all set, everyone's eating, everyone's ready to go. What's the sterilization process for an RON? Just making sure you get the ground almost to like it way it was, or are y'all just getting the hell out of there?
We would spread the leaves out and that to make an attempt to cover it up. but like if the ground was usually covered with a bunch of dead vegetation, so you'd just lay on top of that, and then when you get up in the morning, there wasn't that much disrupted. Probably the mornings were probably one of the most dangerous times, just because you'd spent the night. If they were tracking you or trying to follow you, and they had you in a general area, there's a good chance there was at least one ambush set up in the general area, or multiple ambushes depending on how many bad guys there were around. So in the mornings, you wouldn't break camp right away. I mean, you'd be ready to go, but we would sit and listen and just move a very short distance and sit down again and listen. It was a very slow process getting going in the morning.
Yeah, I can imagine. Hell, sleeping in the field overnight is still mind blowing to me. That's craziness.
Monkeys were always a distress.
I've heard some horror tales of guys getting just utterly beat like a pulp overnight by monkeys.
Yeah, but they could be very noisy at night, where they'd be up in the trees and that sort of thing. And
Screaming and doing all that yelping
and sometimes just rattling the bamboo. It sounds very much like someone walking through the bamboo.
Yeah,
very
I,
stressful.
yeah, I can see why I don't, guys I've spoke to that said they slept in the field. I honestly don't see how they got any rest, because I would have not slept. No way I could have slept at night on a RON. Even with people awake, I would have been too scared. I mean, that is ridiculous.
Yeah. And to answer your other question about the no poop pills, sometimes that I don't know if it was just the stress or whatever, but never felt I had to go.
Gosh, that is so crazy. Y'all talk about that, and guys getting off the airplane or helicopter and being nervous and all that. I'm the exact opposite. The moment I know something big's about to happen, even on interviews or talking to y'all, and I can only imagine jumping off a helicopter. As soon as I jumped off, hit the ground, and knew what was going on, I'd have to go take a dump immediately. I'd have fear dumps that quick. I mean, that's another thing that just blows my mind, that y'all not using the bathroom out there. I have a weak stomach when it comes to nerves, so I would have had to stay back at base. I would have been a hindrance in the field.
Probably, I mentioned this the last time we talked, but probably the most common thing about being in the jungle and knowing where the bad guys are was in the morning, when you could smell coffee brewing. I mean, they primarily ate rice and that sort of thing. You didn't smell, get strong odors of that from their cooking and that, if they had like a squad or a platoon area. But the coffee was unbelievably strong. The smell of the coffee.
It is crazy. Terry said we would use Green Hornets to stay awake, or some other kind of amphetamine.
Yeah. I didn't have that problem. I was awake.
All right, guys, we're gonna show some of my photos that I've got of Mr. Greg and let him give us a little backstory on them, and we'll be closing it out since we've already gone about 2.5 hours with the two. This is one of my favorites. This is in Glenn's.
Oh yeah,
Glenn's room. The Duke stays here, I believe, is what his background says.
that's right.
But wonderful, wonderful photo.
Yeah, hey, Glenn was a true Hawaiian native, and I mentioned this to you before. His mom used to send care packages, and that include brownies and some cans of abalone.
Oh yes.
And that was a huge treat where we'd cook up a little rice in the hooch there, burn some C4 and heat up some rice and put some abalone in it. Oh, what a delicacy.
Oh man, y'all were eating high on the hog, man. I bet y'all looked forward to Mama Yumera's care packages coming in.
Sure did.
That's great. And what a good guy to share with his buds and stuff. This is a new photo that I've never seen. It's going to be in a new book. I've gotten permission to share this, but this was when Glenn was on RT Texas, and I had never before seen this, and this is a very good photo of Glenn.
Oh yeah, that's funny. He had made staff sergeant.
Oh wow, yeah, I didn't even notice that. Wow, he did.
Yeah, that's when he made staff sergeant.
Oh gosh, I hate y'all lost him so soon, or the world lost him so soon. He's one man that I've always wanted to speak to. He seemed like such a great guy. Terry was in training group with him, and of course I've learned a lot about him from all of y'all, and he just sounds like he was just one heck of a guy. Two legends. I'm not sure. It says Dave's with RT Maine, but I know he was with New Hampshire too. He's gotten off the King Bee. Would y'all just meet everyone, or was this you coming specifically to make sure Dave was all right?
Well, yeah, I think I was just coming to check him out, but with this is up at Pt.2.
Oh, okay.
So I'm up there on Bright Light, and they were just coming off a mission. I'm pretty sure they got shot out, and I went over to check on them.
He is a very, very one of the all around SOG legends, but especially CCC. He's up there with Joe Walker and the likes. I recently learned out. I'm still trying to figure out all of the silver pistol winners, but he's one of the 1-0 award honorees. Very, very amazing guy. Of course, wait, I didn't even share it. Good Lord, sorry about that, guys. Mr. Greg and Ron, as I showed y'all. I believe this looks like
That's
hell, I
Captain
don't know.
That's Captain Goulet.
Okay, and is y'all still look dirty? Is this post pre?
Yeah, we came off of a mission there.
Wow. Whew, man. And is that a tourniquet right here that you've got around your neck?
Yeah, I wore that,
Wow.
a scarf.
Okay. Wow. I've seen those a few times pop up and I was always curious about that. And we've got one more interesting. I was going to show a new Leghorn photo and of Glenn, but this is the interesting. I was going to see if you knew any of them while you were flying Covey. Did you know Larry White while you were flying Covey? Six pack.
Yes.
Okay. He's quite the guy. And then there's Lowell Stevens right here. Lynn Moss.
Yeah.
I can never remember that guy from none or gosh, I'm going blank on. I'll remember it as soon as we get off. But back turn, that's Recon Sergeant Billy Greenwood, another legend. And I've got one more for us here. That's Leghorn. People have seen Leghorn, but I'll show it. This is a new one that I've just been sent by a veteran. And imagine being on that, guys. There's the sheer cliff right there that Terry's talked about, shooting an NVA officer with a sniper rifle. But imagine being up here all alone with, 20 or 30 other guys, And that's where Joe Morris was actually struck by lightning when we were speaking earlier, for the record, guys.
Yeah. That was a very small little compound that you could get one helicopter in at a time. And it was usually pretty windy up there too. So it was not an easy landing takeoff for the helicopters to bring up replacements. Guys would go up there for like a week at a time, sometimes 2 weeks. And they were the radio relay site for when there wasn't any air support, Coveys or whatever for the teams that were in the field.
Yeah, that's that and CCN's Hickory were vital to keep the guys safe. One of my favorite pictures of Glenn and John, this is when they're out with Doug Miller's RT Vermont, and you got Glenn looking back saying, "What in the heck am I doing?" And John over there playing it cool. Is this what y'all be in for the most part of this? I can only imagine that's a bamboo orchard right there in front of y'all. Or
those are clumps of bamboo right there. That looks like they're probably in northern Cambodia, along the Laotian border there. When you got further north up in Laos, it was more large hardwood type trees, and there wasn't a lot of bamboo unless you got down near the river.
I think this actually was the mission right before, or I think right before Frank earned, I should say. I have to get corrected and fix that. Earned the Medal of Honor. There's Plaster and Six Pack right there, Mr. Ron. After, I think that's a different angle from when you were just in the photo.
Yeah, that was it. El Faro, you just went by.
Yep, right there. I've found a few good pictures of him that I'm gonna get up, and I'm trying to save for when we have him on. But it looks like we've gone through all of our photos here. Let me make sure, and I think oh, I had one for you because this has Dave Baker in it too, and I don't know if you've ever seen this. I just got sent this by Tony DeQuino. You've got Tony. Bill Danos is right here in his glasses with Frank No. Then you've got Dave Baker over here.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to get the last two guys right here. I think that's from RT Arizona, Mr. Jones, but nonetheless, oh crap, I forgot. Terry was met up. He was with the hatchet force that went in to save Frank and Glenn in January of '70. He got the medal that day. Wow, I forgot Mr. Terry was on that. Not forgot, but it brain farted. Guys, do y'all have any more questions? I've went way overboard here with pictures and all of that. Okay, I guess that's about it for right now. I guess we'll get ready to shut it down. We hope maybe if we can get some more interesting questions up, if folks watch both episodes and all of that, and would you be open to coming back on here in the next few months or so?
Sure.
Excellent, excellent. Jake wanted to make sure one more time. What years were you flying Covey again? I think it's 69 to 70, you said?
Yes, 69 to 70.
Okay. He had just finished up, I believe, with the Recon team. And then, in fact, you went back to the Hatchet Forces and then were injured and went home, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Jake, he went from Covey 6970, Hatchet Forces for a tidbit, and was injured and DEROS'd back. And that's when he crossed paths with Broadway Joe again.
That's right.
Everyone's saying thank you, Mr. Greg, for sharing your history. Yeah, I'm thankful we finally got Mr. Greg on. Thank you for asking that. I should have remembered to ask that. Did you get out? What afterwards? Did Mr. Greg Glashauser continue service after rotating home after his 18-month tour?
About 3 or 4 months, and then I left the service. I had orders as an officer. You couldn't stay in special forces. You had to take other commands, and I wasn't ready to do a regular military situation. Shine boots.
Yes, sir. You'd been so far away from the flagpole, you probably weren't wanting to get back around the rimps, if they were colloquially known as.
No,
Not putting down anybody, but
it was hard just adapting to having a B team for a few months at Fort Bragg, because like if superior officers walk in the room, you're supposed to call everyone to attention and that sort of thing, and then report to them and salute. And I hadn't done that in a couple years, so I was real rusty at that.
Wow, man, I can't imagine what that must have been like, especially going, some of the other guys would go to Devon's and all that, but for you to be sent right back to Bragg to take over a team, I can't imagine what that must have been like for you. I know Mr. Frank Doherty is wanting to sit down with guys that rode with him after his book comes out, and he broached a subject and was wondering if you would be interested in me having both of y'all on one day. He's wanting to reconnect with you and talk.
Yeah, I'd do that. I'd like to do a little off-air conversation first.
Oh, absolutely. We'll set it up like we do these and do a day and us chit chat and get get stuff straight, shall I say. But Mr. Greg, I can't thank you enough for bearing with me with that hassle we went through and us setting it up so quick for everybody to get to watch. So is there anything else you'd like to end on before we shut down for the day?
No, I'd just like to thank everybody that I served with, and God bless America.
Absolutely. And to close out, do you have plans for a book ever? Is a question that just came in.
No.
That one.
No, I didn't keep a diary and or anything like that. So when I read some of the other stories, it brings back memories and that sort of thing. But to sit down and be able to document some of the stuff,
If you want to read about Greg, these 3 books are in specifically Secret Commandos. that has a lot of Greg on the ground and some of Greg in the air. But all three of these books, Joe Parnar's new book, Ultimate Valor, and then the old Plaster book. And this last one is interesting. I should have asked earlier. Did you manage to keep any mementos at SOG from your SOG time, knives, watches, etc.? I'm already pissed off that you've left your Fit Locker. That wasn't in that, but you lost your photos and all of that. So I'm assuming you didn't get anything.
No, I didn't. Nothing came back.
Oh man, gosh, that still makes me so mad. Well, as Captain Glashauser said, God bless America, and I'm glad we could take care of this morning. I had you longer than I intended, but you're one hell of an interesting man, sir, and we thank you. And I will be in touch, and we'll go ahead and close out the stream for today. If you
Okay, thanks
want to
for what you're doing, bud.
Thank you, sir. We'll be in touch. I'm closing it out.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.